Hello everyone, my name's Charles. I produce music under the name Sovryn, and today I'm at DBS Institute in Bristol to talk about bootleg remixing. Yeah, sure. So do you want it on the, we'll do it on the drum bus, would that be okay? Just looking at it as a reference there? Sweet. So play the drums again. I'll turn off all these other ones. So that's it with the camel fat. Without it, it's very subtle. A little bit of body. I think, speaking more personally, I mean, I come from doing the, as I mentioned at the beginning, doing the bass line, the garage stuff. Obviously that's around 130 BPM. This is a jump to 175. I found it really, really difficult to make that transition using the same techniques I was using before. And a lot of that was from the actual, the depth, the body, and the sort of the low end side of things. And that's what I really had to learn, was these subtle ways of making your sound more full. Drum and bass is so fast, there's so little margin for error sonically that it does need to be essentially in your face, for lack of a better term. And I didn't experience that in my previous projects. So that's one thing I had to learn, and that was one technique. I actually never used to sidechain at all when I was doing my previous project in the garage inside. I didn't really use it whatsoever, but you could not get away with that in drum and bass at all. And then yeah, we've just had the compression, multi-band compression, and the limiter. But yeah, we'll just go through what the bass looked like without the... Okay, so it's a little bit more obvious here. And that was just adding tube. I mean, you don't have to use that. Any distortion on the general bus I think can be really useful. Trash, it would do a good job if you use it quite reductively. And then we've got the same sort of general SSL bus comp, multi-bands, and a limiter, just to keep everything in check. That was what I had going on the buses there. Oh, parallel sends. Sorry, I didn't mention this before. So I'm sure you're all aware that the concept of a parallel send is to have a signal running in parallel with your actual main signal. So with these ones, we'll start at the top. I've got a drum parallel compression send, which should be, yeah, so I'm sending the full 100% of that signal into this send. And just slamming that through a compressor. I'm then using the volume to indicate how loud I want that to be. So there's a subtle change. It's definitely making it feel a bit fuller. Some instances you can really slam it. I mean, I've got it quite minimal, but if you really push it, you can get quite an in-your-face effect. I've also used a reverb send, which is, again, 100% of the signal from the drums going into this return. I've got this reverb Valhalla doing 100%. It's very, very low in the mix. That would be it normally. Then I've used an EQ to cut out the lows because you don't want any of that mud in there. But that was also quite a slight layer. It was very, very low in the mix. But you can use it to add a bit more ambience if you need to and turn it up. Oh, screw it. And then similar sort of ethos for the bass. Got the parallel compression here. And then we've also got a bass reverb too. All looks like I've added the delay as well. Just adding a little bit of tail. And of course, since these are running in parallel, they're not taking anything away. If you were to just add a reverb to your bass bus, for example, it's going to remove a little bit of the emphasis from the signal by making it feel further back. But doing it this way using a send, you can then still have that original signal doing all the weight, but then just have the reverb ambience on top of that. So that can be quite useful. I actually have some other ones here which I decided to turn off. If the bass is feeling a little bit too mono, I sometimes add a, I'd probably use this plugin. I would use something like this tool, just a stereo widener on the bass to add extra width. But I felt like there was enough width in this one already, so I didn't use it, but that can be useful. And again, with the sub, if you're in a key which isn't so useful frequency-wise, we all know, I'm sure, that F is the optimum sub note on a system, that really you feel it in your chest. But if you've got a remix and it's in, I don't know, C or B or something like that, it can be a little bit more difficult to have that sub main frequency resonate properly on a system. So you can use a send to add some distortion to create some further high harmonics to hit those optimum frequencies on a system. So that's another use case for these sends here, but I didn't think they were necessary on this tune.
I was going to say, would you be able to look at the neutron transient shaper?
Yeah, please. Oh, it's a beautiful tool, man. It's I wouldn't be able to live without it, to be honest. I mean, you could get the same effect from transient shaping other things, but having the multi-band aspects, so the kick and snare alone without it. Oh, I've still got that up too loud. Just completely changes the dynamic of the kick and snare, and you can, it depends on what you're going for, but I've got it at 4K to change here. You could do all the different multi-bands, but if I just sounds a bit more dance floor. You can even depending on what you're going for, you literally have it. For me, it changes the tonality and the actual almost where you're aiming your drums to sit.
So above 4K, is it reducing the transient?
So yeah, sure. Let's have a little look. So above the where I've set the multiband, and you can set as many as you like. You can set as many as you could possibly want. But above it, I have got it, it's changed now, but I had it doing +2 on the sustain, so it was actually making the transient longer for the upper ones. So if I think you can solo them somehow. Yeah. So I was actually making that a bit longer, nothing too crazy, but just a bit longer. But where it really comes into play is with the lows. That would be the hits originally, but with this, I think it was on -12. Just really tightening them up. And you can then, once you've got the rest of your track together, you can then edit that to where it needs to be so it sounds good with the other elements. I'm just trying to think if there's anything worth mentioning. I think in just relation to the mixdown, actually, we'll talk about that for a little bit. A really, really good bit of advice I was given quite early on is with mixing down, it can be likened to just general life in a sense that you're only going to know how dark something is when you compare it with the light, and vice versa. So you're only going to really be able to reflect on where a sound's sitting in what it's contrasted to. So it's all about the referencing. You can have the best drums in the world, but if they're not working with the bass, and if it's not actually working as a whole throughout the whole frequency spectrum, you're not doing the job. Of course, you need to reference your tracks against other tracks, but I think the most important thing to take in mind is how that they are actually forming together as a whole unit in the end. So things like sidechain can be useful to that, but a lot of the time it just goes down to the individual sample selection and the way that that is formed. And that's one thing I try and really do here with this project.
What do you use like for referencing the track?
Referencing, to be honest with you, I know there's that that plugin, the Magic AB, I do want to get that, but a lot of the time I'm just using iTunes and just playing the tune there, or just getting something in the Finder and playing it there. I've got one of those little, oh my god, I can't remember what the name it is. The little device so you can see the actual frequency spectrum of the other track. Yeah, we've got that one in the studio, and that's really, really useful to be able to just check it against the RMS, the LUFS, and the frequency spectrum. But just using the ears, as much as you can look at what the RMS is hitting, your ears are the best tool you can use for that sort of thing. But yeah, that plugin, the AB one, have you got it, or have you?
No.
I've heard it's really, really good because you can just hit a button and go against the reference. I mean, another way of doing that, this Ozone plugin, Tonal Balance Control. Haven't used it for a while, but you can take a song, any song you like, and it will then generate the curve for that on here, and you can show the difference. Let's just select the source. It would then show you the actual curve. I haven't actually used it for a while, so I don't think I've used it since getting this laptop, so it's not very happy at the minute, but that's a good way of doing the referencing. Thanks for watching, everyone. Really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. I've been at DBS Institute in Bristol, and if you want to watch any more of their content, you can check plenty more out on their page.